Hello everyone, today we will be discussing neural rape. The concept of neural rape emerges at the unsettling intersection of advancing neural technology and fundamental human rights. While the term itself is relatively new, the underlying concerns, the violation of mental and neurological autonomy, is age-old. In our increasingly technologically driven era, the potential for non-consensual manipulation of the human brain is no longer confined to the realm of science fiction. From sophisticated psychological manipulation tactics used on online spaces to the theoretical risk of invasive neural technologies like unconsensual neural implants are chipping. The specter of neural rape raises profound ethical and legal questions. This discussion will explore the various facets of the complex issue, examining both the existing forms of psychological coercion and emerging concerns surrounding the potential technological intrusions into our most private domain, the human experience, the mind itself. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the I Shall Bloom Show. Yes, a show where we interview stellar individuals whose work and legacy has profoundly uplifted our communities for the better. Each week, we interview a new guest and we take a deeper dive into the work that they're doing in their lives, sharing ideas and experience. You see, here at I Shall Bloom, you shall bloom, and we shall bloom. Today, we have Catherine Elizabeth Abbey, and she is not a new guest. She has been here several times, but we're going to talk about some issues that are happening and around the world that we're not talking about. It's uneasy to talk about, but here at the I Shall Bloom Show, we talk about a myriad of things to help someone else, and that's the whole goal, is to be able to bless someone else. And sometimes in our pain, we bless someone else to come out of theirs. So with further ado, our title is today, Neural Rape. What is rape? And then we add neural rape. So Catherine Abbey is going to explain what that is, because she is suffering from that. It's suffering, and as a targeted individual. Okay, so welcome. Without further ado, we have Miss Catherine Elizabeth Abbey. Welcome again.
Hi. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I had no plan to talk on this topic today, but this is the way the day has gone. And so the topic comes up, and it comes up yet again. It just happens to be in this timing when we had planned on discussing a different topic today, but instead, here's this topic instead. And so this topic is a rather broad topic for people who are being targeted, especially with the remote neural technologies and AI. When people are using technology to connect with another person and engage in a variety of sex-related crimes. This is the kind of stuff that goes on in human trafficking operations, in sex trafficking operations. Now, I personally have been a victim of this. I have been passed from one group to another group, and that's been something that I've had to deal with over a long length of time. So now the current group is on me, and they've been doing a lot of sexual activity this morning. So it results in a physiological, neurologically based rape of someone. Now, it doesn't look like I'm going through rape right now, but the reality is that the individuals and the technology they're using to connect with me are engaging in sexual activity as I'm having this discussion and explaining it. right now. Now, one of the proofs of that, how can this be observed? What kind of proof can there be of that? And I'm open to people observing this kind of thing because the group that's on me is also on my dear friend. He is in his early 70s. He's actually the same age as my father. Him and I, we have had a relationship as dear friends, but we've never been sexual with one another. We've never entered into that realm of relationship. But we do have open and honest conversations about the facts of these neuro rape things are taking place. So just before I was coming out to do this stuff today, Steve told me about the forced arousal that he was experiencing. I was nowhere around him. I was like outside and he was inside. He's watching no pornography. He's watching, there's nothing going on in his 3D environment or with his device activities that would do that for a man who is 73 years old. So when you see a man in that condition getting a forced erection, that's an example of an observable phenomenon that a person can witness with their 3D eyes to notice that a neuro rape is taking place. So I can describe how it's affecting me, but anyone can look at the body of someone and see it change sexually. And you can see that the person's doing nothing to cause it to happen. The person's thinking no thoughts themselves. The person is watching nothing. And so this is an example of how the technology is affecting many, 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 many people. So Steve and I experience these kinds of things. I'm doing a lot of work in the field of advocacy to raise awareness of this, to provide education about this, and also to talk with people who are experiencing these things. I've done a lot of victim support conversations where someone is sharing with me some aspect of this part of the targeting that they're experiencing. And so, again, I have a lot of background in helping conversations with people, including people going through some very traumatizing things. So I think it's important that we have effective conversations with people who are suffering these things.
Sure. I'm trying to understand it, but me as a targeted individual, I don't understand it, but I know that it exists, and I know it can exist because of what I go through remotely. So when did you, and I'm going to ask these questions because we need to understand it, because when you're aroused, there are certain parts of the body that, of course, responds to it. So then you said that it's forced from is he going to come on, Steve, or Mr. Steve coming on today, or no?
No, he's not.
No?
He won't
Okay,
be on
no problem.
today.
No problem.
Yeah, he's been going through a lot, and he didn't know about this.
Yeah, so I consider, I can relate, I can't relate to that part of it, but being raped spiritually, being raped financially, being raped mentally, when someone is intentionally sabotaging your name or your life. So, I mean, it's raping of your will, raping of the life of a targeted individual, anything to make your life unstable, imbalanced, and bringing it back to the raping of a peaceful life, the raping of being able to buy a home and live peaceful in it without being direct in a weapon that's burning you or harming your house that you live in and you sleep in, killing you. So it's perverted, and so this thing is perverted. It's of the devil. And so when we think of all the things that he's involved in, why wouldn't he be involved in that? Right? So when did you first experience neural rape? Did you understand what you were going through?
No, not when it first started. When it first started, I was unsure what I was experiencing. I was unsure if it was paranormal, if it was spiritual. I just knew that something was connecting with me and doing things. And there was like no one around. So I could feel the interactions that would take place. There's an energy field, and when you have a brain-to-brain interface in place, and when there's a brain-to-computer interface in place, then you're picking up on thoughts and feelings and movement of whoever or whatever is on the other side of that interface. So people can do this in a brain-to-brain, and they can also do it in a brain-to-computer. So, for instance, in an earlier time in my life, I was going through a more open form of sexuality. I had been monogamous and married for 14 years, and then after we had separated, then I became involved with other people. And in the context of that, some criminals found out about me. And I did not understand sex trafficking back then. I understand it much better now. What I knew is that I was in sexy communities, and I was a witness to a lot of things, as well as a participant in different things that I've always promoted: safe, sane, consensual, negotiated behaviors, leave illicit affairs out the door. Let's be open and honest and transparent in our conversations if we're going to do something together. That has historically been my position. So this is a field of relationships. When we're talking about sex, intimacy, and relationships and sex trafficking, these are all things that are going together. And this also ties into statistics that I've heard others state about targeting, where females in their 40s are regularly showing up at the top of the list of those who are showing some kind of evidence of targeting taking place. Sure. I believe it was Jesse Beltran that had mentioned that in one of his. So I started to try to look out for people in these sexual communities. And there were these two young women. They came over to me and they said, "We're being exploited. Can you help us get out of our situation?" So a friend and I, we helped them get out of the situation, and we put them in the safe house because we're in a safe house. So we brought some other women into the house with us, trying to get them out of a more sexually exploitative situation. And as we were all there in the house, the women were experiencing and talking a lot about sex trafficking and MK Ultra and things like that. And that was my introduction to doing some research into that. That was back in 2014. So I found myself to be part of these communities that were being targeted, and different people were being targeted in different ways, and we would have conversations together about things that were being experienced. And I was aware that technology was involved, but I didn't understand it back there the way that I do now. What I knew is that if I was spending time masturbating by myself, something was coming in and interacting with me. So in my lack of knowledge back then, I thought, is this a spirit? Is this, what is this? Is this paranormal? I had to go through that process of figuring out what it was. And then it took some time, and it's like, this is technology. People are connecting with me and doing these things with me through technology. So this is something to understand when we're talking about these remote operations. So different people have different configurations of operations on them. Some of them have just AIs on them. Other people have people plus AIs on them. Other people have 3D gang stalking plus neuro stuff and V2K stuff. There are different configurations, but there are all these things where one victim after another is expressing something that is so common for targeted victims to understand or to experience. And so neuro rape is one of those things that it is very common to hear a targeting victim say that they've experienced rape in whatever form that it has been. And we're talking about sexual rape, because a lot of victims will talk about things like mental rape, the way people will come in and steal thoughts, plant thoughts, manipulate thoughts, do mind control operations. And you learn how to go day to day working through whatever it is that, God has put on your plate to tend to that day in the midst of all that evil that is going on in these operations. So it's a lot of depravity. Sex and killing tend to go hand in hand in many ways. So a lot of these groups and a lot of the victims will talk about things like neuro rape and they tried to kill me, or they talk about killing me, or whatever it is. These are common things to hear victims say, because this is what's going on through the interface. People are hearing these things, they're seeing these things, they are physically experiencing things coming through the interfacing and affecting whatever it is that they have going on in their lives at that time. So it's really important for people to understand these. They're called critical and emerging technologies. They lack effective governance. There is a list of categories and subcategories of CET, critical and emerging technologies. You can find it with the White House publishes it. And so you can note that this is an official thing. You've got this list of technologies. They are critical, they're emerging, but we have no effective governance for these things. So when we're talking about the neurotechnologies, we have very limited legislation in place at this time. We see things that the Neuro Rights Foundation is doing to try to move legislation in multiple states to try to address this issue of neuro violation, neuro affliction that takes place with so many people. And warning, more people experience it than realize it. It typically takes a learning curve for a person to wake up, recognize that this is going on, recognize that their experiences are connected with this technology and targeting that's going on, and then you start to ask more detailed questions about it. But there's that awakening process where you get that initial wake-up call, and you start to recognize things are different than how I had originally started to perceive. And you go through that process of learning and trying to piece together the pieces of the puzzle, because it's very difficult to get effective investigation into these things. Many victims are calling and reporting to a whole variety of agencies and governmental departments and administrations, and it's been so difficult for this issue to get absolutely necessarily progressed. So hopefully we can take some steps forward in getting some general education out to the public at large, because just like the general public knows that AI is in operation and that it's really advanced, people also need to understand that the neurotechnologies are actively in operation and are very advanced. Just like people know the term artificial intelligence, AI, they should also know brain-to-computer interfacing. They should also know brain-to-brain interfacing, so to human technology.
Well,
so how do you have, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a few questions too. So when you first found this out, you were single because I was trying to put my mind around being married and being intimate with your husband, and then that going on too. Um, so you said that you guys had separated, and so of course, or you were separated, and so you start noticing alone. And what is it like if you ever experienced it with a partner, and how would you deal with that? You know what I mean? It just you ever
Yeah,
experienced?
it's very complex to say the least. I do have experience being targeted and people manipulating with these technologies all the way back when I was monogamous and married with my now ex-husband. Um, so I have these memories, like there are very specific memories that I have where the group that was on us, uh, I was 18 at the time, and my ex-husband and I, prior to being married, we had lived together in an apartment. And there was this just really strange experience that we had all those decades ago where he was having a dream and it was corresponding with what I had going on in the middle of the night where I was tending to this task in that apartment where I go to the kitchen and I get a knife, and I had a urinary tract infection at the time, and I was taking a urinary tract pill, and so I was going to cut the pill in half. And I just remember this, like, it was so, like, just evil and charged, just like I felt like this presence was there, and then this really terrible energy came off the knife where I just felt like I had to put that knife away in the drawer. And here I am in this house, and I had to put together the pieces of information I had available to me at the time. What I knew from my ex-husband was that the person who had lived there prior to us had passed of a brain hemorrhage in the bedroom. So I thought maybe it's a ghost kind of thing, because, people have ghost stories. This is me at age 18 trying to make sense of what I experienced that night in the restroom. Like the energy on that night was so bad. And then when I talk with my husband about it later, he says that in his dream, he had dreamed about being cut in.
He dreamed. So it's force.
Correspondence. See, this is how an operation comes in. And then there were a bunch of other things that happened that night, like whole bunches of stuff was happening that night, where it's like in my mind right now, having the experience and the knowledge and the understanding that I have, that was blatantly, obviously, an operation going on. All those decades ago. And I was monogamous at the time. Both of us were monogamous at the time. And then we ended up getting married and remaining monogamous. And then, and during that time, different people and different groups would be on me over the course of time. So now I come from a military intelligence family, and I was connecting with one of my military relatives around that time, and we were talking about some stuff. And so, could people have been watching me in relation to that? I don't know. I can only state facts of the factors involved. And so I can look back on something like that in hindsight, because that was an example of I just didn't know. I just didn't understand the technology. What I could say is that, could it be paranormal? Could it be some kind of spiritual activity? I just did not know. And so for a number of decades, I just did not know. But I would get impressions here and there, because as people were watching me, again, the people and the groups, they change over time, in my experience. Now, this current group that's on me is the worst of them all. Like, I have experienced worse things with this group than I ever experienced with any other aspect of targeting earlier in my life. So there is a difference between the different groups and how they're operating in any given moment. Earlier in life, I had a life. I had my job, I had my family, I was deep into my family and my home. I'm married with 2 young children. I love being a mother. I love doing healthy things. I'm involved in parenting organizations and community groups and trying to fight the corruption of the world and doing the whole organic and sustainable and home educating my children because, I want to get them away from, whatever the corruption might be. I was the mother who wanted to create healthy relations with my children, who wanted to feed them healthy food. Like that was my background. I was very deeply invested in the field of mothering. And then the targeting got going. And in 2014, I got a warning from a man. I was trying to help him rescue his wife. She was a geneticist. Anyway, whole other targeting thing where I was trying to help out, but then I got the warning, you could be assassinated and your children can. And less than a year after getting that warning, sure enough, my children were used against me. There's a whole court thing, and it was a big traumatic thing for me and my boys, but we had to go through a separation in relation to the targeting that I was experiencing. That all is sitting in court papers where there are significant political things connected with that. I have people in my life who I have crossed paths with. And in the political sphere, when we're addressing these kinds of matters, well, if particular people come to the table and have a conversation, where can that go? So what time, on what day do particular people want to come and sit down? I'm talking about Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm talking about U.S. Representative Laurel Lee. These are people who have been connected with me and my situation over a long length of time. And so people who are in particular positions where, these neuro legislative things need to pass. We need to be moving that stuff. What can we do here in Florida? What can we do for the nation? These kinds of things. Because here in Florida, it's we've got serious crime things going on. We've got serious targeting. It's one of the more highly targeted states. There's a number of states that are more highly targeted, and Florida is one of them. So especially when we're talking about things like human trafficking, sex trafficking, people get all worked up about the child sex trafficking. And if people understood how much sex trafficking was going on just way above and beyond the child sex trafficking, like if people's eyes were opened to those kinds of things and how this technology is being used in those kinds of operations. And it's way worse than just sex trafficking. The amount of work that is being stolen from people, intellectual work, professional things that get stolen. These operations are very, very corrupt and very, very, very outright evil in a whole list of ways. And so, again, being able to look at things, we need to look at neuro rape and other forms of violations, forms of neurological justice.
So I wanted to, it's a lot, it's, for someone, so I kind of want to take it in small bits at a time. So we talked about neural rape. Is there a particular time that this happens? I know you said that you are in contact with, you've been in contact about this scenario, this phenomenon, this rape, this crime for a while, and it's kind of like the secret, like the Targeted Individual Program. It's coming out, but it's still the secret, or you're crazy. So does this happen a certain time of the day? Is there something that someone when we edit this and put this out, something that they can do while there's nothing being done anywhere else to get peace? What do you do to get peace while this is happening? Because I know you talk about this group is on me, this group is on me. So how does that work?
Yeah, they're like invaders. So we have, as TIs, many of us have devices in our bodies. There are different ways that people use to discern that devices are indeed in their body and that people are connecting with them through the devices, whatever that might be, whether it's able to be seen with a 3D eye, all the way down to nanoparticles, whatever those devices be and however they got there. So people are connecting with us through the technology, and they're using AI in the process of doing that, and that's a whole quagmire in and of itself. So being able to discern between the human element and the AI element, that's a process of discernment.
Mm-hmm. I was just saying, so AI can be good for us, help us, and it can hinder us as well. It's being used by the wrong person, our groups, our governments that are using AI. I wonder and I know you don't know this question, but I know the different levels of targeting, like, and I'm just talking about that because you probably wouldn't know the answer of why do they pick certain people to deal with that part of that level of targeting, this person to go with this level. You know what I mean? So it's just like I don't get the V2K, but I get the weapons, recognition weapon, neural monitoring, the stalking, of course that sabotage of everything, but I don't get that. And then there's some that say I don't get the game stalking, but I do have the V2K and the neural rate. That one is really quiet, but targeting, but that doesn't get mentioned until someone else mentioned it. Then they're like, yeah, I'll get that too. So I'm glad that you are, we had another show today on Zoom, but it didn't happen because it was meant for this show. Even if we just open it up and put it out there, and I will name it neural rate.
Yeah, there's a lot to go into with it, and again, I've been initiating conversations. I hope that people who are passionate about addressing sexual crimes can step forward and we can address the issues involved because, one, it needs to get acknowledged. Two, people need to be trained in how to have effective helping with people who have experienced that. So that's part of my background. I have history of communications instructor teaching how to have effective helping conversations with people. So I hope to do some role modeling in that regard, and perhaps there are some professionals who would like to learn more about this, especially if they are working with someone who has this. And again, we need to get the education out there.
So if we put the word out there to invite others to come on for our next show for this neural rape part 2, how would you feel about that if we open it up for only that discussion?
I'm open to having a call on specifically that, and I personally think it might be good to have, for instance, a victim of that who wants to discuss that kind of thing, and then we can have that kind of helping conversation without a lot of additional people to add at that time. It can be a sample of how a one-on-one would take place.
Yes, I think you're right. I think it should be only for focusing and exposing neural rape. I think that will be freeing for a lot of people who are in hiding, because I was in hiding about being targeted. I just felt like it was cursed, or I was something was wrong with me, so I hid it. So I'm sure that there's people out there that's hiding that level and suffering, during the day and during the night with this, because there's no set time, I guess, huh? No set time or when they're going to.
Well, I mean, it depends upon the particular operator or operation.
Mm-hmm.
Some people might have it set up on a timer type of thing, and then others may go for different reasons. Now, this group on me, there are people who are experiencing 24/7 effects from what these groups have set up to have go on. And so Steve and I do have experience with 24/7 dealing with these things. So again, all throughout this, for instance, they have a lot of energy on my face right now. And they're hazing out my eyes right now.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that. All I have to do is just run my hand over an affected area. They're affecting respiration. They're affecting skin sensations. They're affecting the alignment of the bones. There are different physiological, physics-based effects that take place when these kinds of things are going on. So, and again, that's part of my professional purview, is in the mechanics of the body as well as the mechanics of the sound that the body makes. So that's part of what I bring to the table in discussing these things, because I want to talk about how the physics of this is taking place, because that brings us more to the real aspect of what's going on. So anyway.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you for the way God led this. This is where we need it to go. And so this will be part one. And in the next one, we'll open up to others who are experiencing this. And I don't know if it'll only be for that neural rate. And so I look forward to our next meeting on this. I don't even have it scheduled. I don't know when our next schedule is going to be. We'll get together and talk about that. Put it on calendar.
Yeah, I've thought about hosting a Zoom meeting for people who have experience with neuro rates, to open a general conversation and see where it goes. But it would likely have to be very selectively moderated, because we want to be careful of that kind of discussion devolving to an area that's unproductive.
Embarrassment.
So I want to try to get
anything that's going to embarrass or make you feel uncomfortable, to be transparency, huh? So I want to provide a place of safety, that it's safe here, that we're no judging, we just want to expose it, and you can have someone else to talk to, because you're not the only one suffering from this. Just like we had to find out that we weren't the only one suffering from gang stalking, or, B2K, or, all the others that go to weapons. So it's a cry out to reach out for those that may be lost in this program, this part of the targeting. A cry out. Yeah. So I thank you again. That was very profound, very powerful. Introduce yourself again, and then I will look forward to, we'll get together again, and I guess we can, something doesn't have to be choreographed. God says, hey, this is what I want, and then it's guided that way. And so this is opening up a new door that needed to be opened, huh?
Yeah, I just followed the path of things that were already there to discuss. Like, all these things I'm talking about are just like, here's an update on what I've been doing with this for the past year and what needs to be done moving forward, and trying to give some kind of education and scope for moving forward, so that people can feel like they have like an action step that they can to raise their voice against these things, maybe do something to make necessary changes. So.
Sure. All righty. Well, I thank you again, Ms. Catherine Abbey. Catherine Elizabeth Abbey, I thank you again for coming and spend time again with me here on the I Shall Bloom show. And again, I'm the host, and I can be reached at Sandra at ishallbloom.com. This will be, actually, I'm going to edit it, and it will be uploaded to YouTube, and so I'll add a little extra to it. Remember that I shall bloom, you shall bloom, and we shall bloom. Bye now. Bye. Talk to you in a few.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.